Hello, I'm Sebastian Michael. I'm the writer of the Sonneteer, which is a play on passion, power and possession, as I like to call it, incorporating some, by no means all, of William Shakespeare's sonnets. And I am going to embark today on this new project, which I'm calling tentatively Saturday Sonnet. This has two strands to it. On the one hand, I'm going to record all the sonnets and just simply read them and post them onto YouTube together with the actual text, so you can listen to them and read them at the same time. And then I thought it would be interesting maybe to pick out of these 154 sonnets that Shakespeare wrote, or that we have of Shakespeare's, one every week that is of particular interest to me, or that I imagine might be of particular interest to you. This is going to be very arbitrary and very personal and not in the least scientific, obviously. And so that's what I'm going to do. And if there's an interest, if you're interested in this, and if people want to see these videos, then I'll continue doing them. And if not, then I might just simply stop. But if all goes well, we might be doing this for up to about 22 weeks. There are 154 sonnets, which is 22 times 7. So we might have a break at some point. I don't know yet. It's all very much an open thing. Today is the 23rd of April 2016, and this is the 400th anniversary of William Shakespeare's death. And this is, of course, the reason why I'm starting this today. I'm going to not be discussing a sonnet today. I'm simply going to give you a bit of an introduction to why I am interested in the sonnets, why I love them so much, and also maybe just a little bit my approach. And so this is like the introduction, this is like the welcome video. And then from next week onward, I hope to be doing the project proper, where we are going to look at these sonnets one at a time. And in the meantime, of course, I'll be posting just simply the sonnets themselves, one every day. Now, why did I write the Sonneteer? Obviously, I wrote the Sonneteer because I got interested in the story behind William Shakespeare as the Sonneteer, in this case not as the playwright or the great dramatist or the actor or the theatre impresario, but as the Sonneteer, somebody who wrote sonnets. And I fell in love with these sonnets, more or less by accident, I'm glad to say. It was in the summer of 2013 when a friend of mine on Facebook randomly posted, "I've just noticed that it's exactly 154 days until Christmas, and for want of anything less sensible to do, I'm going to post now every day until Christmas a sonnet." And that's what he did. And he invited friends who wanted to join a Facebook group, and he diligently went about this by posting a sonnet every day with some annotations. And this very quickly became one of the highlights of my day. I would wake up looking forward to reading the sonnet of the day and learning about it. And as I did so, I realized, because I then literally did that, every morning I would get up, go to my computer, and virtually the first thing I would do would be to open Facebook and read this sonnet, and read it out loud to myself and read the notes. And what very quickly transpired for me was that there's a story to this. This is really very obviously not just a random collection of beautiful poetry. This clearly draws a trajectory. It draws an arc of a story. And that story became more and more obvious in a way to me, in the sense, not obvious as in an obvious plot, but it became more obvious what this is about. And more clear and more intriguing, because it is so incredibly fascinating, this relationship that transpires between William Shakespeare, a writer, a dramatist, somebody who's already somewhat established, at least. We have to be careful what we think was the case and what wasn't. I'll come to that in a moment. And a young man. Now, the moment you start reading into poetry that you have a story, you are of course making assumptions and you are constructing a narrative that may or may not be there. We simply don't know. And I thought, well, this is in itself an interesting challenge or an interesting task, because what do we know and what don't we know? Obviously, I then did some research, and the moment you do research into something like this, you realise, of course, everybody has an opinion. Everybody who knows anything about this has an opinion about it, and these opinions are sometimes very strong, because you construct things. And that's how the tagline of the play very quickly came about as well. Everything is conjecture except the words. Which means that simply we really don't know what we're talking about. We simply know what we have. And what we have, luckily, in this case, is a collection of 154 sonnets that are almost entirely undisputed in terms of the words. They are simply there. Of course, if you read different editors, they will make slightly different emendations as to punctuation, spellings. There is the odd word here and there that gets discussed in great detail and very interestingly. But what hardly anybody needs to argue about is that these sonnets exist, that they were written, and that they are wonderful. The latter statement being a matter of opinion already, but in my opinion, certainly they are absolutely wonderful. And so I set about writing this play. We did this play, we did a first version, a short, it has to be said, a very short version. It could only be an hour long, in Edinburgh in 2014, which happened to be, 2014 happened to be the 450th anniversary of Shakespeare's birth. I wasn't aware of that when I got interested in the sonnets. I didn't realise that there was an anniversary coming up. But it was a good coincidence. And now, it being the 400th anniversary of his death, I wanted to do something, and I wasn't ready yet to do a new staging of the play. The play is in development at the moment. I'm rewriting it, I'm reworking it a bit, I'm expanding on it a bit. But I thought, well, I could always read the poems, couldn't I? I could read the sonnets, and then the idea came to maybe talk about them a bit. And my approach with this is going to be essentially the same as with the play, in that I'm going to hope to be assuming nothing to start with. I am a writer, primarily. I am a performer now and then, but this is not my main thing. At the moment, at any rate, isn't. I was performing this play in Edinburgh, but my core being is to be a writer. I've been writing for a very long time, since I was 17. And I've written a number of plays, I've written a novel, I've written a tiny bit of poetry myself. But I'm approaching this from a writer's perspective, not from an academic's perspective, is what I'm saying. There are other people out there who probably, I don't need to say probably, who certainly know a hell of a lot more about these sonnets than I do. And there is a wealth of knowledge out there, which you just have to use your favourite search engine to find out. So this is not an academic approach I'm taking, nor am I claiming to be an authority on these sonnets. I have read them all many, many times. I am reading them all out to be posted onto as videos onto YouTube now, so I am certainly studying them. I have studied their background to some extent, and I've made some, when I was writing the play, made some assumptions about them, or constructed a story around them that I felt they offered. But in no way am I suggesting that anything I'm ever going to say in this video blog, I haven't got used to using the word vlog yet, but in this video blog, nothing I'll be saying in this is a truth, in the sense that it may be a truth, but I don't know, is the answer. We simply don't know. We have no idea, really. We absolutely do not know anything more, really, than what is in the words themselves. But they tell us a hell of a lot. They are very, very revealing. I think in the best possible way, in the sense that I think a writer here has put his soul, his being, his heart into this writing, which may be here almost like in parentheses, in a bracket, prompts me briefly to say this is one thing that I take absolutely as read, that they are Shakespeare's, and that Shakespeare existed, and that he wrote his own works. There is hardly any evidence. This is a whole separate debate that can and maybe ought to be had. But as far as I'm concerned, and where I'm coming from with this, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that Shakespeare existed, that he was the person who we believe he is, that he wrote his own works. And if we take that as read, that he is a real writer who wrote his real plays and wrote his own poetry, then I think it is fair, reasonable, certainly, to read these sonnets for what they are, which is a very structured way of expressing yourself. There's a wealth of them. They go through every possible emotion, from what starts out as simply fairly neutral, a fairly distanced telling a young man to get on and produce children, to infatuation, to passion, passionate reciprocated love, to separation, to jealousy, to forgiveness, to despair, to reconciliation. And then it only really starts getting really complicated when we reach the Dark Lady sonnets, which are almost a whole separate story in them. And I think these sonnets are absolutely personal. There will be some people who argue cogently that the sonnets are perhaps purely an exercise in writing. Maybe they are just Shakespeare practicing his art, his craft. This is possible. I think it's extremely unlikely. I think they tell us what goes on inside of this man. So that's the premise, if you like. The premise is that we know nothing. Let's assume we know nothing, but we have these words. What do the words tell us? And I'm also, for the purposes of this blog, of this vlog, not going to assume that you already know about the sonnets. I'm going to assume that you may just simply be interested and have no idea about any of them at all. Which of course means that if you're an expert and you know a lot about these sonnets already, I might really annoy you. And I don't really particularly apologise for that, because that's the way it is. That's, if you know about these sonnets and have formed an opinion about them, it's extremely likely that you will at some point or other think I'm talking nonsense. That's just the way it is. That will be the way it is. And we can take that, we can accept that for what it is, and then move on. But if you know nothing about the sonnets, or if you know a little bit and are interested in them, then accompany me, come with me on this journey of discovery as we delve into Shakespeare sonnets and simply read them all and pick out from all of them every week one that I will introduce in a little bit more detail as I understand it. And so perhaps as a concluding note, what thrills me so much, what excites me so much about these sonnets today, and why I think they are so fresh, and why I think they can speak to us, and they do speak, or they certainly speak to me, is because I think they are effectively chart a postmodern relationship. I mean, you could put them into a constellation of three people, possibly more, but certainly at least three people today, and on Facebook it would be, it's complicated. They go through everything. They go through the love triangle. They go through the through the falling in love with each other and falling out of love, or still being kind of in love, but also seeing other people. It's messy and it's wonderful and it's extremely human. And the language, of course, is glorious. It's sometimes a bit taxing because you don't understand it maybe immediately, but they can be understood. And if there's one desire, one wish I have with this project, both the reading of all the sonnets and this Saturday's sonnet vlog, then it is to make these sonnets maybe even just a bit more understandable, a bit more directly accessible to somebody. If only one or two amongst you out there think, this has helped me to understand and enjoy a sonnet more than I would have otherwise done. This has encouraged me to spend a bit more time with the sonnets, and this has given me an entry point to the sonnets. Then my job, such as it is, here is done. That's all I want to do, and I want to share it because I just love them so much. That's really all there is to it. So if you like what you're hearing, if this interests you, if this piques your interest, then subscribe to the channel. Do give your feedback. If you want to know more, head over to thesonneteer.info where you'll find more. Don't forget, love is the power, and see you next week.